Well, I decided I was going to test the waters again on doing an eco dyeing session, and I just had to share it over here because I really struggled to find some clear, concrete information, even though there's 8 million videos out there about eco dyeing. They just, none of them really had clear defined a recipe, and I realized that it really depends on where you're at, what kind of green foliage you have, and what types of papers you're using. So I'm going to give you mine. I'm going to put the recipe right here that I used so that you can screenshot that if you want for easy reference. And also give you some information on the types of papers that I used this session, because I did have success. Let me also say that you need to not use dried items. With one exception, I found that anything I used that was dried did not work, with one exception. And that exception is what gave me, anytime you see this really dark going on here, that is what caused that. That is actually slightly, it's like a gray, a purplish gray almost. It doesn't look like that but it did when it was in the water. So what I did, I took a container of water, hot water, and I would say that that was probably 4 cups of hot water and about 2 heaping tablespoons of alum. That may have been too much, but it worked. And an oversized brush. It doesn't matter if it's a boar brush or if it's smoother than that. It doesn't matter. It just, an oversized brush really worked well for me. And I had that at the ready as I was creating my bundles. And for my bundles, I used, this is old oversized graph paper. You can see how the graph on it is large, but you can also see that this really disintegrated. I did get some awesomeness going on here on that. And I will talk about some of these here in just a bit of what I used, but as you can see, this paper really disintegrated. Now, am I glad I used it? Oh, definitely yes, I'm glad that I used it, because I saved all the little bits that came off, because these are still absolutely fantastically gorgeous. The other thing that was really cool about this session is this green color I got. I got an absolutely fantastic green overtone to everything, and I love it. And I love it. So, I did use rusty bits. I did not use a ton. I used 2 large pieces in my pot to hold stuff down. And I used some oversized washers, and you're going to see some, big washers, and you're going to see marks from those in here. I did not use them on every page. So, the other thing I used, as you can tell from this print, and some more in there, is that I used, these are from sheets of watercolor paper that were that were bound into a book. So they're the rip-off tabs, and I usually save those to work with because they're fun, and ended up getting this mark in a lot of pieces that I did. So as you can see, this one was probably the one that was right there. Anyways, you can see that these turned out really fantastic as well, and will be super fun to use in collage. The other piece that I used was some paper drywall tape. This is the drywall tape that kind of has a crease down the center to fold for going in corners. It held up beautifully. and I've used it before in iron baths, rust baths, and eco dye sessions or dyeing sessions. So here's one of those washers, and this is a tag. You can see the tag shape here, and look at that, how well you can see that flower right there. I don't know if you can see it real well here. Try and get that to focus. But this is I think it's called a lupine flower. It's a purple-like flower. So, another one right here. Some more of that hold stuff. And these are ferns that were given to me by Crafty Hope. She sent them to me. These are actually petals that are off of roses. Not petals, leaves from roses. And then here's another washer. The next paper I used was some underpaper paper that I use for underpaper. It's actually this old calendar paper from like years and years ago, and it held up surprisingly very well, because it actually feels thinner than this paper did, but this paper was more vintage. So you can see these are all rose petals, and then this is where a washer was on a different piece of paper, so the shape of it came through. These are wildflower leaves, ferns, rose petals. So this turned out really fun as well. It's a thinner paper. Yeah, and a lot of fun. Then the next type of paper I used was book paper. So this is a leaf here. Here's the washer. And the reason why I didn't have more rust was I only used a very small amount of vinegar, as you saw in the recipe. So this is book text. It is not super old. This was actually wire, rusty wire that I used. This was some desert wildflowers. They were all yellow. I'm so surprised that I actually got yellow going on here. More of that rusty wire. Here's another one of those yellow wildflowers, and a fern leaf that was sent to me. This is one of those lupines. You can see one of the leaves are stuck on here. I didn't pick it off because I didn't want any more ripping going on. And I'll talk more about what made this color. More of that fern and the wildflowers. And these were leaves that were also given to me by Hope, and I cannot remember what that leaf was. I'll try and remember to ask her, and if I remembered, I'll put it down on the screen. The yellows on this side are just fantastic. Alright, I was gifted quite a long time ago from Ricky Mibbert over at Ricky Tikki Tavi these cards. Now they have a glossy side and they have a matte side, and I just dawned on me I should try these because they're really thick, and I am so glad I did, because I got some just absolutely fantastic, look at that leaf pattern, just gorgeous leaf pattern, so clear. More leaf pattern. Look at this one, beautiful leaf patterns. This was a rusty piece. Some of that fern. More leaves. These were rose leaves, or petals. More of that fern. So those were really awesome. Nice and heavy duty. Kind of took away some of that gloss. Alright, the next type of paper I used were tags, and I used a really large variety of different types of tags. From the oversized tags, and here you can see a washer, and just very clearly you can see this wildflower. Then some small, this is a watercolor paper tag. Some of the rust pieces, wire that I put in. This is a regular weight tag. Here's another watercolor tag. There's another rusty washer. Just look at how clear that is. Look at this leaf pattern, just fabulous. These are rose petals. And by the way, the rose petals did not make this color, but they could have pulled in, because they're more fleshy and soft, they may have pulled in this other item I used that I'm going to tell you about here in just a minute. Alright, and then the rest of what I used was watercolor paper. I did two bundles. I did a large bundle and I did a smaller bundle. And this held up very well. You can see the tag. That rusty washer. Beautiful leaves. Flower. Washer. Some of that rusty stuff. These were rose petals. And in here are some of those leaves that I can't remember what they're called, but Hope sent them to me. These are larger leaves. This was a rusty bit. Another rusty washer. Fern. Those lupine-like flowers. Alright, let me get the fabric and I'll be right back. Alright, this is what I used to tie the smaller bundle up, and this is what I used to tie the larger bundle up. Look at that green. This is sari silk, and this is just cotton string, heavy duty string. And then this is the fabric. Just love this color. The greens are just gorgeous greens. You can really see the leaves here. Not so much distinction. I really use this to wrap along the outside. Alright, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about my additional ingredient that I used, and I sprinkled them on the page, and I did a little bit in the water, and that is dried hibiscus leaf, and that is what made this dark color. And I think because it's from hibiscus petals, that the reason why it was attracted to the rose petals is because they're like things. They're like these fleshy, soft, you know how the rose petal feels. So that's how hibiscus is when it's not dried. And so I think that's why it pulled in to where the real fleshy stuff was, where the flowers, petals were, and made some of those really beautiful dark areas. So I just I broke them up and sprinkled just a very little bit on some of the pages, not all of them. And then I did sprinkle a little bit into my water at the very end. Now the other thing I wanted to talk about was where I get this lattice-like mark from. Right here, here, you can see a little bit of it here and here. And that is this. These, I sell these in my shop. They are in larger sheets, of course, but they are plastic, like bar keeping material that they, in bars, they put it down on the surface to make allowed glasses and stuff to dry. And these are just some broken pieces that I had left from cutting down the really large sheets into sizes that I could sell in the shop. And for gel printing, but I had these and I always have them sitting aside because I like to use them to use with spray paint and that kind of thing. And I had a few of these that didn't have spray paint on them, and I thought, well, they might melt. And you can see some of them that were close to the metal actually did melt. So that can happen, or just keep them away from your rusty bits, I would assume. But they did make these marks. Now, they didn't contribute any color, but they did definitely allow, because they are dimensional, they impressed on the paper and allowed the natural dyes from the eco matter and the dried hibiscus and probably even the rusty bits to pool into those areas and mark around the structure and give us these marks. And I really love how this definitely man-made structure is appearing in along with these rusty bits. This man-made is appearing within these eco prints, and I just love that. So I hope that you have gotten something out of this brief video about my ecodying trip that I've been going through, because I've done a lot of it recently. If you watch my Instagram feed, you'll see a lot of it there. And I just wanted to have a little bit more success with eco printing or eco dyeing. And so I hope that has helped you out.